Hello and welcome to this short video where I'm going to teach you an enormous amount, I hope. So pay attention and hang on and let me know in your comments whether it was too quick. So a little bit of context. This is a short piece of descriptive writing. Students had, I don't know, 7 or 8 minutes, and I had taught them in a tutor group, mixed ability, and I wanted them to see the #1 technique that I thought was going to make a difference to their writing. And I also think it's the #1 technique that teachers tend to forget to teach, and it is the use of contrast. So in the blue underlinings in a minute, I'll show you how this writer has used contrast. In the orange, I'm going to show you a particular kind of contrast that I want you to try out for yourself because it's genius. It moves you straight into A-star territory, or grade 8, grade 9 as it is now. And then finally, I want to show you what good writers do when they're describing, and that is they put in as many techniques as they can naturally. They think about cramming their writing with techniques all the time. So let's dive into the contrast. The birds were gliding recklessly amongst agitated families. Their cries could carry for miles, farther than the vicious waves. So here we've got this brilliant contrast of the birds gliding. We've got an image of peacefulness here, and that's deliberately contrasted with the agitated families. Then we've got another contrast straight away, the cries of the birds carrying far, even farther than the waves, who were vicious, and the birds presumably aren't. Their cries are much less vicious. So we've got 3 contrasts in just 3 lines. Then this student carries on with a further contrast about the same thing. As the waves hurl down, seagulls screech and scamper to land. So you've got this violent coming down, and then a violent sound, but they're coming into land which will be controlled. Then we have another contrast where we move from the outdoors to the indoors, into the train. And we have this beautiful phrase, in the train, the noise is beige. And that is a contrast where the writer has used 2 different senses, and we're expecting a word that describes noise, but instead we've got a noise that a word that describes colour from the sense of sight. Now what's so brilliant about this is if she'd said in the train the noise is blue, we might have had a stab at guessing what that meant. It could have meant sad, but blue sky is also happy in sunny environments, so it could have meant happy, and so it's imprecise. But this use of the word beige is really precise. It's impossible for you to read that without you thinking that this conveys an idea of dullness. It is a dull colour. And so we've got an idea about dull noise. And this dull noise, of course, is a contrast to all this huge noise we've had from the waves and the noise we've had from the gulls. And it's achieved with this totally unexpected use of the senses. So do that. Get a contrast where you expect a word from one sense to be used, and instead you've got another. And when you're practicing this, I would do what she did. Just concentrate on using colour to describe either a noise or a smell or a texture, and see where you get. Okay, let's carry on reading. About business trips and the quality of coffee here. And you can see how the details that she's picked on perfectly fit this idea of dullness. They've got nothing more exciting to talk about than trips. Well, trips could be exciting. No, she's made them unexciting by calling them business trips, and all they're drinking is coffee. Outside, the roars of waves leap up the wall. So again, you've got a contrast where we've moved outside again, and you'll see that's going to be picked up with another movement inside. Outside, the roars of the waves leap up the wall. Drops of water thunder on the train, making a noise like thousands of rocks being pelted on the roof. Back inside, talk turns to weather. So there's another contrast again. We've got the noise of the of the waves and the rain pelting down to this gentle talk turns to weather, very boring subject again, which takes us back to beige. How was Peru? Being answered somewhat vaguely. Good, I guess. And again, for those of you who don't know, Peru is South America, an amazing country that I long to visit. I'm desperate to go there. You can ski there, you can climb Machu Picchu. It's just a fantastic looking country. It's too far for me to get to, and the person's reaction is good, I guess, completely underwhelming. So there's a contrast between something brilliant and this boring reaction. And of course, this boring reaction takes us back to this idea of beige, dullness. So this is a genius bit of writing because it is totally built around this contrast, and you can see it working all the way through. Meanwhile, blissfully unaware, the waves are getting taller and stronger. So again, you've got another contrast with what is happening in time. So hopefully you can see how brilliant writing is constructed around contrast. Now, not only is this fantastic for you with question 5, where you have to write a description, it's also brilliant when you're having to look at the question on how the writer structures the piece and talking about the focus, because each contrast is a change of focus. So when you're answering the focus question, the structure question, if you always look for contrast, you will always get the marks. And by the way, the extract that you get will always be based around contrast, because that's what good writers do. So hopefully you got a sense of that here. I've ignored any mistakes in the writing because I just want you to concentrate on what's brilliant about it. Now, the final thing you'll notice, I hope, is that it is packed full of techniques. Some of these techniques might surprise you, I don't know. In red down here we have a simile, which is what you'd expect in a descriptive piece of writing. This simile isn't necessarily that awesome, but it's there. However, the two things that are in my blue boxes are incredibly powerful verbs that give you a real sense of what's happening, and really subtle alliteration. So the birds are gliding. This is gives us a real sense of how peaceful they are in comparison to the storm below. And then their cries could carry. The alliteration on the C's actually makes the sound carry, and so it mimics what the gulls are actually doing. You might not even have noticed that alliteration when you were reading it because it doesn't feel contrived. These are just words that she needs to describe what's going on. They give the right information, but she's cunningly used the alliteration to make them more memorable. Then you've got this powerful verb hurled, and then screech and scamper, again powerful verbs, but she's alliterated them again, and so you get that harsh sound. The alliteration emphasizes the harsh sound of the gulls. You've heard me talk about beige, but did you notice how she makes that stand out with the alliteration of be in about and be of business? You probably didn't. Again, because she's very subtle about it. The words aren't obviously there just to give her alliteration. The meaning comes first, and then she puts the alliteration in second. Just like here, the quality of coffee. You know, she could have written the type of coffee, the standard of coffee, but she didn't. She picked something that had that same hard C sound, quality of coffee. Then you've got these violent verbs again, leap and thunder being used as a verb, and pelted, another violent verb. And then that's contrasted to the lack of violence and the peacefulness. Talk turns to weather. And again, that alliteration there, really clever, because we would expect turns to be in front of talks. So back inside, they talk about the weather, or they talk about the weather. Actually, no, I'm talking rubbish. You wouldn't expect it to be reversed. Anyway, she's used it naturally, and yet the alliteration works. So hopefully you can see how well constructed this is with two main techniques, contrast and alliteration, and other descriptive techniques put in. The main thing that has it all holding together is the contrast and the powerful verbs. I've done my 10 minutes. I've got to stop. Try this for yourself. See how you do. Good luck.